Hi, I'm Marla Niederer from OrsinisAngels, and I just wanted to share with you how I created this little watercolor painting of a winter scene. And what I'm going to be doing is kind of using it to give to people instead of sending holiday cards. So I thought it might be fun if you wanted to join along with me. And what I started out with was, and what inspired me, was I saw these on sale at Michael's. And they come in 4 pieces together in a box, kind of like this. And they were on sale. So if you bought one package, you got one free. So I thought it was a pretty good deal, and I kind of wanted to do something. And the other thing was, I was thinking that it will help me practice painting on hopefully closer to a daily basis than what I do. So by painting small, it also gives you like thumbnail sketches that if you really like how it came out, you can make it into a larger painting. But it's kind of fun and quick and easy, and something that you could gift to others. So what I'm gonna do is I'll show you step by step exactly how I did this, and so if you're interested in making your own, you can. So what I did was I started out with Arch's watercolor paper, and I cut it to size because these are 2 by 3 inch, but you know, by all means you can do whatever size you want. I just thought it was a nice little cute size that it was easy for me to paint. And what I did is I used these whiteboards to tape my watercolor paper on so that it doesn't buckle once I wet it. And you know, it still does buckle a little bit, but not too bad. And once you put it in the frame, it's fine. And what I used was some tape, watercolor painting tape. And what I did is I just wadded it up and put a piece behind it to tape it down and hold it in place, because it's such a tiny piece of watercolor paper. So the other things I have, I mean, you can use whatever watercolor paints you like or you have, but I just use what I have in my travel to go to palette that I just throw some paints in that I like to use. The paints in this particular palette are mixed between Sennelier and some Daniel Smith colors. So, but you know, use what you have. And I have a little mechanical pencil, and what I start out with doing for this kind of drawing is, this is a very small one, it's a 0.3, so I like the fine lines. And I have, a Tombow eraser, and then a regular eraser, and then I have some travel paintbrushes that I use a lot. So without a lot of talking, I'm going to start sketching out, and you could do that along with me. And what I'm going to do is just kind of draw in my little horizon line. And this actually picture is done from a picture I took on my morning walk. I tend to like to go walking in the morning, and I live in a rural area, so it's pretty scenery. And this is just a little shed. It's not going to be exactly like the one in the painting. I never do anything exactly identical, but that's kind of the fun. So I'm just kind of putting the roof, and I made it a little too high, I noticed, because it was, there's not a lot of sky, so I'm going to just erase that and do that again. I think I might make it a little lower. And And just to give it a little bit more room for the sky. So I'm just going to do a line here. And in the little painting, I'm using that as a reference. Originally I used the photograph. And kind of just drawing the different angles of the roof. And this is a shed. And I took a little artistic liberty and changed the color because the color with the snow was just too drab. So I'm just making a few lines. And kind of this is the most complicated part, and I think my little shed is a little bigger in this painting. Maybe I'll try to make it a little smaller. And then I'm just going to erase a little bit here. Some people tell you to draw first and then transfer it with tracing paper. But you can do that if it's easier for you. I guess there's no one way to do anything. I mean, there's so many different ways depending on what works for you best. There. So, and then I put some little windows in it. And then there's a little door here. Now this is also going to be a little bit of mixed media, because once I'm done with the watercolor painting, I don't know if you can see it, but I added some iridescent golden acrylic paint for the little white, just to add a little bit more bling, but most of it's done in watercolors. What I did originally is I just drew lines for the trees and then I just painted them. And I did a larger one here. And then here I kind of had a little bit of background that was more faint. And then to give a little bit of perspective, there was a fence, so I drew in the wooden posts, and it was kind of like a line, so it gave it a little depth and perspective in the painting. And they got smaller the farther away they went. Okay, so that's basically the entire sketch, so it's pretty easy peasy. And now we'll just start with the watercolors. So what I started out with is the sky. So I just kind of wet the background where the sky is going to be. And I have a little paper towel in case I put too much paint. And I believe the color I used was a Sennelier think it was Snellier Indigo. So I'm just going to put some water on my palette by that color. I'm going to use that as the dirty water and this the clean. And just grab a little bit and start out at the top. And then add a little water to bring it down. And I might add a little paint. Just drop it in. Get the edges. And if you want it, you know, to make a little bit of clouds or whatever, you can just pick up some of the paint. And give it a little bit of interest. And then that'll dry and lighten up. So everything you do is going to lighten up. So what I might do now is add a little bit of, I think I'm going to try a little bit of Payne's Gray for the fence posts in the painting. And again, this is not exactly like the one that I originally did, and that's okay. It's just to kind of have fun, do something relaxing, and maybe I think I'm going to add another fence post here. And maybe just kind of create something fun and practice my watercolor painting and make a quick and easy little gift as I'm going along. And I'm just adding a little bit of water to bring out the color of the posts. And you know, if you're kind of messy like I hear I did a little mess, I'm just going to pick it up there. And here, just pick it up a little bit. Alright, so you see how dry that's still pretty wet. So what I might work on is the inside of the barn, or the little building. It's really a shed that I walk past. And I think the color that I'm going to use to start out with, I think I'm going to do a little bit of Payne's Gray, just to give some depth. And then I'll go in with the red and give some shading. And I'm going to add a little bit more for the windows. And the paintbrush that I'm using is one of the first paintbrushes I started out with when I started doing watercolors. It's an Escoda Reserva, and this one's the natural bristles, but and it's a size 8, and I really like it because it's a travel brush, and I take it whenever I go painting in different places than my studio. But I've also tried the Versatile, which is also by Escoda, and this one's a number 2, and this is a synthetic, and it's more reasonable than the natural fibers, but hair fibers, but this also works wonderfully. So I really like both their synthetics and their natural bristle brushes, and I find it's a game changer. They really know what they're doing with their brushes when they make them, so I've really enjoyed them quite a bit. And I'm going to add a little bit more on the eaves, or under the eaves. There. And this was a little messy, so I think I'm going to clean it up. And I think I put a little bit too dark here, so I might pat that. And that's what I like about using a good quality watercolor paper too, is that it can take a lot of layers, and you know, if you make a mistake, you can pick it up and you're not going to damage the paper. So I do really like working with arches, but again, use what you have. So the next color I'm going to use is a sap green, and this is a Sennelier. So I think the sky's dry enough where I can start adding some trees. So, and I'm not too worried about the snow, because what I'm going to do for the snow is add that iridescent white paint. So I'm just kind of doing some shapes for the tree and just kind of making like a fir tree, and we've got a lot of those around here where I live. So in order to learn how to make them, I kind of look at them and kind of get their shape and pattern. And start on the next one. And it's just little movements. I think I have too much paint on these to start out with, so I might pick some up with my paintbrush, you know, just wet it, dry it, pick up some of the color, because I like to do layers and kind of give a little depth. But if everything's really dark to begin with, you can't do that. And just keep going. So I'm going to do another tree here. And again, this is a little too dark, so I'm going to wet it and pick up some of the colors. And do it again with the big one. Now what I liked in the original painting was that they the trees all kind of touched. So I'm going to go back and kind of make them a little bigger. And again, it's just kind of giving you the impression of the trees. And just, you know, if you're painting along with me, just have fun. Okay, so the next color I think I'm going to use is, I think I'm going to continue with the Sennelier Indigo. But, you know, if you don't have that color, just use a color that you like. You know, a blue that you like. And kind of go from there. And I'm adding water to make it light. And making some trees in the distance. And I'm going to start putting in some shadows for the snow. And here I'm doing wet on dry. But I can add water to it to smooth it out. And just keep adding a little bit. Now here I'm going to add some shadows from the posts. There. And I think I'm going to add a little bit. They're kind of dry, so I'm going to go in and add a little bit more sap cream. Just to kind of give it a little depth. There. And I have a little bit of Amazonite Genuine, so I think I'm going to add that to the background trees because they really don't look much like trees right now, but I want it to be a light color. And I probably used a different color in the original painting. So I'm thinking that this is too bright, so it's going to bring it forward. And I want it to look like it's in the distance, so skip that Amazonite. And that's kind of how I work, you know, kind of practice and play with things. So I think what I'm going to do is just mix a little sap green. And I think I'm going to add a little bit of that Sennelier Indigo just to tone it down and make it look like it's more distant. So I'll just add that to the background. And again, it's not going to look exactly like the first painting because quite frankly, I don't remember what colors I used, and that's okay. And it's going to dry lighter. but I want to take a little bit off too. Okay. And here I have a little bit of green melting down into the shadows, and that's okay because that's what I want, because I want the snow to be reflecting what I have, so it's okay to reflect the trees, but it's a bit much, so I'm going to pick up some of it and kind of go from there. And I might actually add some of this color to the trees here. Oh, I like that. And again, that was just a mixture between the indigo blue and the sap green. Okay. And I'm just going to kind of wipe a little bit. All right, now I'm going to work a little bit more on that building. And I believe the color I used was the Sennelier. I think I used a Carmine. And it's a nice bright red, and I really like it. So I'm going to use a little bit of that. And maybe not. It's very bright. So I'm going to bring some down. And maybe I did. But just use colors that you like, that you're drawn to. There you go. And what I'm going to do is add a little bit of shadow with that color that's on my brush. So that the snow is reflecting the building. And gonna let that dry a little bit, and I think I'm gonna start going in with a smaller brush. So I have the smaller brush, which is the number 2, and it's an Escoda, but it's the synthetic, and I really like it too. So what I might do now is add a little bit of the Payne's Gray. So I'm not really using a lot of colors here. Go in a little bit more with the windows. And the doorway. And then if you can see, in the original painting, I had a little bit more over the red, so I'm going to go do that. Add some lines. And some shading. It's still a little wet, so it's kind of dispersing, but that's okay. And I think I'll let that part dry. And maybe go back on the posts. And this, again, is the Payne's Gray. And just have fun, you know. It's a little mini painting. It's can be used just as practice, can be used as a gift, you can do it as a card, whatever makes you happy. That's what it's all about. It's not about perfection, it's about making something precious. Because if you know, you're just having fun, and you know, the more you paint, the better you'll get. And we all start somewhere, so. And then I think I'm going to add a little bit of line here so that you can see where the building end and the snow begins. And just with a little water, bring it down. And again, so it doesn't look quite like the original one. I think it's a little wonkier, and that's okay. Kind of like wonky buildings. And I'm going to add some water and bring it down. And I'm going to add a little bit more Payne's Gray to the windows. And the doorway. And then I'd like to kind of just see if I can get some lines. Give it that rustic old shed look. And they are kind of spreading, so I'm going to pick some of that up. And I think I might add a little purple. This is Daniel Smith's Quinn Purple. So just add it under there. And since I'm adding a little purple there, I think, and I'm going off the beaten path, I'm not even following what I did in the original painting, and that's okay. And what you don't like, just pick up. But I am liking the purple here. So, you know, a lot of your painting is little happy accidents. And you know that you can always start over. Okay. And I think I might add a little bit of that mixture to the trees, just to give a little bit of variation there. I think what I'm going to do now is let it dry. Well, there's parts that are dry that I can work. I think I'm going to add a little bit of pencil work. So, and I just broke my pencil. But just kind of add a little bit of that barn board look. And they're very thin leads, so they do tend to break easily. I'm really on a roll here with breaking them, though. I think I'm going to get rid of some of those. There we go. Okay. And I am going to add a little bit more Payne's Gray. And a touch more Payne's Gray here. This one's a little bit more colorful than the first one. But that's okay. And I will let it completely dry and come right back. Okay, so I'm going to come back in. I have a fountain pen, and it has a blue ink in it, and I'm just going to kind of add a little bit detail with it. You don't have to use a fountain pen. You can use, you know, whatever you have on hand, but I'm just adding a little detail. So this is truly a mixed media piece. You got the pencil, you got the watercolors, a little bit of ink, and before we're said and done, there'll be a little bit of acrylic paint. And I think I'm going to go in here and just kind of add a little lines here and there. Okay, so it's a little bit more contrast since I've done that. Now what I'm going to be using is golden fluid iridescent pearl. So because it has a little bit of glimmer and it'll bring out the snow. So I'm going to just put a little bit, and I use just a bottle cap for my palette. Don't need much at all, just a drop. And what I'm using is a skewer stick. And some people they like to splatter, but this is so tiny. I kind of want to make sure I know where the paint's going. So I'm going to start out with the tops of the trees and add a little bit of snow. And the fact that it's a little glistening and iridescent makes it all the nicer. So you ever go walking on a nice wintry day when the sun catches the sparkle of the snow? It's just so nice and pretty. Today it wasn't snowing, but we had an unbelievable frost, and I did walk by the shed, and we don't have snow on the ground, but because of the frost you could see everything sparkling along the road while I was walking. It makes it nice. I try to walk as much as I can and get outside, get a little bit of that fresh air, and see, all of a sudden you see the snow on the trees, and the bonus point is it's glistening. Now if you don't have that paint and you have like a white acrylic paint, you can use that. Just kind of use what you have, and I'm going to do a little bit here in the background. And then I'm going to add a little bit of snow on the roof. And you know how it kind of hangs, so I'm going to give that extra. And a little bit under the windows. And just a little more in the trees. And then on the posts, you know, usually there's a little snow on top. Easy peasy. And it's just kind of so relaxing to do, and add the little details, and then you have something pretty and fun that you can share with somebody you love as a gift or just a greeting. Let them know that you're thinking about them. Now this is where, you know, if you like to spatter, you can splatter your paintbrush, but I just want so tiny, so I'm finding that using the skewer stick works better for me. And I'm going to add some snow in the sky and make it look like it's snowing. So I'm going to just kind of add a lot at the top and then have it come down. There we go. And there's our little wintry, snowy scene. And I think the last thing that I'll do is sign my initials, because it's too little to sign my whole name. So I'll just put my initials there. So I hope you enjoyed this little tutorial. And I hope you enjoy a creative day today. And thank you so much for watching my video. So I'll talk to you soon. Bye now.